as you start to take this extensive responsibility for the experience you're having, you start to say, and I don't want you in my life. Like, literally, if you knew certain dynamics were literally as easy as changing the film in a projector, poof, right? You'd be throwing people out of your life left and right. But because it's a little more sticky than that, especially when it's relatives or lovers or, partners or business associates, etc., there's a little more of a hiccup between, oh my God, you drive me crazy, and get the hell out of my life. Plus, you are a tribal species, right? You are tribal. You don't believe it as much nowadays because you all live in your house with fences around them by yourselves. But this is one of the first lifetimes you've ever experienced where you lived alone. Unless you were running off to live in a cave, literally live in a cave, you lived in a tribe. You lived in a small community. You didn't have airplanes and trains and cars where you could get the hell away from the people that drive you crazy. You lived in their same house, right? You ate at the same table day after day after day. You worked in the same field. So to have a lifetime where you live alone, or alone-ish, right? You have your own fence, and you experience the world from a perspective that doesn't allow for that kind of pushing together by demand. You have the ability to disconnect from people much more easily. Even though it still feels hard to disconnect from people, any one of you could pick up and move to Maine tomorrow. Literally, you could. Well, a couple lifetimes ago, the idea of going from California to Maine, one person in a million might make that journey. Right now, if we said, okay, there's ascension in Maine, we could probably get at least half of you to buy an airplane ticket tonight, right? So it's not hard to go to Maine. That means it's not hard to walk away from relationships that you want to walk away from. And we point that out because the flexibility you have in your friendship base is unheard of in your other incarnations. So really, there's extraordinary freedom to pick and choose the people you want to be around. Especially compared to before. But even compared to before, like as in 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you're starting to believe in yourself enough that you don't need everybody else to tell you you're okay all the time. You don't need the rest of the world to say, you're good enough, or you're good, period, or you suck, but you suck and we'll keep you around anyway. You don't need that kind of external validation in order to feel real as much as you used to. So that gives you even more freedom to make choices about the relationships you're in. You get it? Mm-hmm. So you arrive at a point where you recognize, okay, I have more freedom than I've ever had in any other incarnation to choose my circumstances. I have more freedom because I believe in who I am. I don't need to surround myself with people as much as I used to in order to feel loved or real or acknowledged or like I'm not going to die because I don't have a tribe, right? And when I recognize that their behavior is simply reflective of what's going on in my internal life, and I change my internal life and their behavior doesn't change, so I can say compare me to me, that's not acceptable to me anymore, or their behavior does change and it goes to something even less acceptable, or I just recognize, look, dude, I don't resonate with you anymore. Out you go. That is freedom, but your tribal setup and your way of being might tell you that's to be feared. Because people will say, oh, I don't have any friends, or I don't have a lot of friends, and I don't want to get rid of the ones I have, because if I do, there won't be new ones. Well, part of that is like saying, well, I don't want to get rid of these sandbags because if I do, I don't have any more. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't get rid of some of the sandbags, the balloon never goes up. There's a balance there. And part of the balance is you saying, I want healing above all else. I want healing above all else. Does this relationship facilitate healing? That might be like a really super good question to just run through on every single one of your relationships. Does this relationship facilitate healing? Now, healing is an interesting word. By healing, we don't necessarily mean, is it happy, happy, joy, joy, bunnies and rainbows? No, by healing we mean, do I grow? Do I transform? Do I like myself more? Do I feel like I'm a better person? Am I becoming more of the truth of me? Now remember, the truth of you is inside the marble block. So sometimes it takes some sandpaper and some chipping and some this and that and the other thing to get it out. So it's not like, oh, you trigger me, so I don't want you in my life. It's, oh, you trigger me, and can I work my stuff out in relationship with you, or is it just habit, unconsciousness, and more triggers? Because it's not, I want to relate with you because you don't trigger me. It's, I want to relate with you because we're both growing when we do. And sometimes we grow through some trigger and some consciousness work. Sometimes we grow through laughing. Sometimes we grow through projects. Sometimes we grow through shared sorrows. Sometimes we grow through just simply sitting on the couch. And sometimes you grow through the opportunity to say your truth and have your truth heard by another person, right? Because sometimes that's the biggest gift or the best healing relationship you can be in, is when you can tell the truth of you and someone says, I can just hear you. I don't have to fix you. I don't have to change you. You're not broken. You're not damaged. I'm not trying to complete you. I'm not trying to finish you. I don't know better than you. I can hear your truth and receive it. I can just receive the truth of you. That's sometimes the most healing relationship. So there's no one example of that's a healing relationship and that's not. Because any relationship can be a healing relationship, but sometimes it's a lot of work to get to the healing. And sometimes you just might say, like we've said before, just re-cue it. And by that we mean say, I recognize that this is my issue. And I recognize that you are too difficult for me to learn this issue, learn this thing I want to learn with. So I'm not going to do it with you. And you just say, hello, whoever's taking care of the line, put this issue back in line. And when it comes up again, give me someone who I resonate with more to work it out with. Now, it sounds a little bit like you're saying, I give up. And you're not. It's you're saying, I give in. I give in to the truth that I want to be kinder to myself and my creations. The girls will be happy. Right? It's too hard for me to learn this with you. And a lot of this is an example of like birth family stuff. You know, if you've got dad issues, mom issues, sister issues, brother issues, you know, did we hit them all? Dog issues, cat issues, whatever. A lot of times, either the birth family has already left the body, and then you're kind of like, what? Is this issue never going to get resolved because so-and-so's dead? You know, Aunt Jeannie's dead, so I can never resolve my issues with Aunt Jeannie? No. That's why we have script holders. Someone comes in and holds a similar kind of energy. Now, the beautiful thing is, bring in someone conscious to hold Aunt Jeannie energy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? Bring in someone conscious to hold Aunt Jeannie energy, rather than saying, well, Aunt Jeannie was abusive, so I need to bring in somebody else to abuse me so I can try to heal. It's very difficult to heal with somebody who wants to abuse you. So if you bring in someone and you say, I have issues around female authority figures in my life, maybe you have a boss that comes into your life that's kind, but is also an authority figure. You see? You're allowed to do that. And that's what we mean by as your life gets more narrow and focused, what you're focusing in on is the relationships of the type you want to have with the type of people you want to have them with. And you're not letting yourself kind of make do with relationships that don't support your opportunity to grow and be the completeness of you. As you narrow your focus of individuals that you're willing to run their film in your camera. Am I willing to put your film in my camera? Now, the beauty of this too is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that's where boundaries and preferences and neutral observation come in. Because you say, God, you know, you're awesome to go to the ball game with, and you're awesome to go to the beach with, and I like going to the movies with you, but God, you eat like a pig, and you chew with your mouth full, and you're disgusting at the table, and I cannot stand looking at you. You put me off my meal. So guess what? I'm not eating dinner with you anymore. Right? That's a silly example, but it's still true. You know, you're good at throwing a frisbee, but my God, have you ever heard of a napkin? Right? So You can, and if you love yourself, and if you're not believing that without a certain tribal size, you're dead, and if you're not, all those things we talked about earlier, you can set a boundary with that person without feeling lack. And that is really the point of the whole thing. Learning to set boundaries that support you and your relationships that support your growth without going into lack. Now, many of you over the years have brought up the relationships you have with your primary partner. And the idea of changing that primary partner relationship brings up lack. So, we will just leave you with the thought that not having a good relationship with yourself is the greatest form of lack that we know. Start there. Build on that. The girls tell you it every week. Love, 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 love yourself. Why? Because you start with that as a foundation. Nothing can rock you. Nothing can confuse you. Nothing can take you out of that truth. And then that truth can set boundaries, right? That truth sets preferences. That truth stands up and says, wait a minute. Just a minute. Wait a minute. Like, hold the horses here. I'm not running your film. Not anymore. And I'm not going to go into lack about not doing so. Okay? Mm-hmm. So when you find yourself wishing to set a boundary, state a preference, put some room between you and somebody else, and you're hesitant, asking yourself, what am I afraid I'm going to lose? What am I afraid I'm going to lose if I tell the truth here? We've brought that up before, but this is kind of a nuance on it. What am I going to lose if I tell the truth in this moment? What am I going to lose if I tell the truth in this moment? And at some point, whatever it is you're afraid you're going to lose isn't as valuable as telling your truth, because the truth infuses you with more of you. And at some point you say, I want healing above all else. Telling the truth in this moment gives me healing. If I lose this friend, if I XYZ, whatever it is, that loss, in quotes, that loss is nowhere near as important as what I would lose if I didn't stand up and say, I need this now.